I was contacted by Raytheon, and they contracted me to go to the South Pole. I was not really interested in going there, to be honest, but at the time it was the only person on the, it's so funny in hindsight, because I used to say this back then. I'd be like, listen, I have to go do this because it's the only person on the planet that'll cut me a check right now.
Yeah.
So I went because it was what it was. I needed to pay bills, and almost everybody that I went there to meet was there for the adventure. Like they all looked into the adventure and how to figure out how to get there for the adventure of it. I was there because I had bills to pay. There was a lot of people coming and going in the summer season. I believe our camp population was up very close to 280, which was high for a summer season. And that's people actually residing. It doesn't really qualify people coming and going through the facility to outer camps or just day traffic flying in and out and activities like that. In addition, it's an international facility. So there's a lot of people that don't speak English. They're from foreign lands. And additionally, this is something that was brought up, I think, on Rex Bear on the Leak Project. I think he pointed out that, with all the cold weather gear, there's so many times that people are just covered head to toe. I never actually saw who was inside the gear. So he was, teasing like it could have been an alien. I guess I could have. I don't know. But I can't officially say that I saw anything that odd. But I will tell you that when you're talking about facilities with massive amounts of money invested in them, I don't care where you are, they're shady. If you're talking this billions and billions and billions of dollars put into a building, there's something else going on besides what they say it does. And that's anywhere on the planet. And I've worked in all types of those facilities. So yeah, everything's shady. What I divulged in Ilyana's first interview a year ago, and this was it was kind of funny because I guess I knew when I was saying it at the time, no one's going to pay attention to them saying it anyway. No one's going to see this video. But it's there a year ago when I first planted this seed to see what folks think. And the ELF is what I brought up. The extra low frequency system is on. And a lot of people don't know that. And it may or may not be a big deal. I guess it depends on what you think the severity of that system operating is. They were saying it was off. I'm saying to everyone, that's not true. That's basically the long and short of it. I mean, people have to take from that what they will. No one told me what it was doing or anything. They were telling me it was off. I'm saying it wasn't. I know it to be on. I had full run of that facility. I had every circuit breaker and blueprint available to me. I'm just simply stating I went to the South Pole Station, and I can confirm that from 2010 to 2011, the ELF system was on. Now everybody needs to look into what an ELF can do and ask themselves, if it can do that, would they be using it for that? I'm not certain why they initially put it there. I would have to gather that it probably had something to do with submarine communications, would be my best guesstimate. Some sort of long range communications would be what they stated it was originally built for. Now, there's a trillion other things they could be potentially doing with it, but then that's a matter of them. This is just step one. It's on. Now what do people do? There's a lot of things that an ELF system can be used as a component thereof to other systems. But I can't say that I know that's what's going on. I can only tell people what I do know. It's not off. Most things happen because of the intentions of others in most people's lives. They don't actually realize how much intention and collusion is going on outside of their presence to impact their lives. I think, we're all kind of beating around the bush on it on our shows and trying to present to people that things aren't exactly what we've been presented. And why would they ever be? When you get presented something, it's like television. You get presented a show. It has no semblance of reality. When you get presented the history of the world, it probably has very little to do with the history of the world. When you get presented the science of the cosmos, it probably has very little to do with the science of the cosmos. When you get presented, the religious aspects of a certain society in an area. Like you know, things get changed. It's the telephone game through time, especially when somebody else realizes that the game is going on and they start to modify things and tweak things and insert words as the telephone game is going on. So I started noticing the world changing. There's a couple of major points in my growing up that I saw as pivotal points in society where I said we shouldn't turn this corner. We should not do this. It should not be allowed to happen this way. One, I was working in Kmart in high school, and I had found out that in the book section that Kmart was such a powerhouse of the industry that if they didn't like the content of your book, they could make the author change it for a Kmart content-friendly version. And I went, wow, this can't be good, that the commercial establishments are now telling the artists what to do and what to create. And I immediately said, this is not good. And look where we are since that thought happened. You know, we're on an internet with artists who are just constantly edited and told, you can't say this, that's too controversial. You can't make people think about that. How dare you spread that fraudulent information out there? It's not fraudulent information, it's my thoughts. I just happen to disagree with everyone. I didn't realize that would get me the scarlet letter nowadays. Compartmentalization is where it's at. That's the power. And it's very easy to make a compartment think that it's very special. And I don't want to say that, you know, folks like Committee of 300 members and Bilderbergs, I don't want to say that they're not powerful. They're certainly powerful in their own right, but they are factions. That is correct. There are factions and factions and factions. And that's why, I like clarity when people say like they, because there's so many different theys. There's so many groups in this. And like, you're discussing contemporary stuff. And I would say that those factions are the ones that we know about. Yes, there's people behind them because they're the ones that are from greater antiquity, that have been in power longer than those groups came into existence. There's a lot of warring between the factions. And that's still we're just talking globally. I also think intergalactically. So that just adds more factions. God only knows how long people have been fighting on the surface of this planet about this planet, but God only knows how long that fight was going on somewhere else before it even got here.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I had a thought a couple of years ago that what if a lot of our history and a lot of these, cuneiform tablets and a lot of the things that's, been kind of discovered, and we've kind of, figured out our history more. What makes it that it's actually from Earth, right? What makes it that it even had to happen on Earth? Could it not have happened on another planet and they brought the tablets here from another planet? Like there's so many different possibilities.
That's a good point. They could have been transported from somewhere else and brought. I've never heard anybody mention that, but that could be. All possibility exists always. And yeah, maybe we're a repository of histories from other places. I'm deciphering my experience, and what I do with that is that I'm basically embracing, I call it like an 80-20, like 80% of our lives are pretty much similar. Like the boring 80% of my life is very similar to the boring 80% of your life. You wake up, you have a job, you have a car, you pay your insurance, you have rent, like that type of stuff. We all share that same story, but it's our 20% that makes us different, that we don't share with people because it's expressly ours. And lots of times it's so different. We hold it in. We don't connect with people because of that. And I want to make people more comfortable in expressing that 20% as well, so that they embrace themselves as a whole and they express their stories in their entirety for the benefit of themselves and everyone around them, right? I believe that your story, Ryder, is important, that your experience matters. And even if you have oddball parts of you that you don't normally communicate, I believe without a doubt that if you were to communicate it, I could learn something from it. So to me, it's a detriment to the world for all of us to collectively be withholding our 20% because it's a little bit uncomfortable for us, when in reality, everyone has a 20%. We should all just embrace it and share it for the benefit of ourselves. And I think the they in the equation likes us to only consider that the 80% is real. And they don't want us to discuss the 20% because it's hard to discuss the 20%. I get that. But that's what makes you, you, and that's what makes me, me. And in reality, if we were to choose which aspects of us would be the more engaging part to discuss, I think you would agree that if we were to sit down and have a coffee or something, we'd rather just discuss our 20% and leave the 80s out of it. Mm. And I think people should start doing that more. I think connecting with people is very important, especially on that level. More so than ever, I think, is critical right now for us to let people know I'm as weird as you are. It's all good. We're all in this together. We can help each other. Yeah, I'm very interested in other people's stories and the paths that they've walked, and the whys and wherefores. When I had my plumbing company in New York and I would go to all these different people's homes, there's a lot of questions that, you just engage people with that are, kind of standard pleasantries. But then, some folks you realize you can get a little bit more intimate with the conversation and more driving with the questions. And I learned a lot of really cool stuff. But one of the things that I would always ask people was simply like, whatever it was that they did for a living, right? I said, I get that it pays the bills and all that kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. I said, but seriously, does it make you happy? And would you be doing this if you could be doing something else and still paying your bills? Like if you could just flip a switch and be doing something else. And almost everybody would have flipped that switch. Almost nobody's happy with what they're doing in life. And that amazes me because no one admits it to everyone else. But how is it that we're all in this circle? Everyone's doing this? No one's happy, but no one's going to admit it to anyone? What are we doing? Oh, I'm paying my bills. But it doesn't make you happy. And it's like a freaking ant colony. Everybody just does their job and grins and bears it and hushes up about the stuff that they don't think other people should really talk about. I did for a while what they call rotational work here in Alaska. And it's 3 weeks on, 3 weeks on, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 3s and 4s. You get rotations, right? But when I go to work, I fly somewhere, I go to a camp, and I will work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day as a minimum, lots of times, sometimes more. And I can do that for 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 weeks straight. But then you get time off. You rotate, okay? So in the weeks that you're working a lot of overtime. So for all practical purposes, let's say you do a 3 and 3 for the year. In 1 year's time, you're going to make more than a year's salary because of all the overtime. And you're going to have half the year off. Now explain to me why you would then choose to work a full year if you could work rotationally. But people don't know they can work rotationally. And when you start to explain to them this process, the cognitive dissonance that has them reaching for that 9 to 5 schedule blows my mind. Because you're like, no, you're right. You're right. You should work the whole year for less money. Good call. And people just can't even imagine that exists. They can't find a comfort zone without that security of knowing I have a job next week from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Good. My mortgage will be paid. I can afford Twinkies and Doritos again. How about here's a role in society that's programmed in that we see all over the place, right? Big sports fan guy has the jersey, the hat, come on, really? We're really all supposed to care that much about sports. I mean, I've been not watching Monday Night Football since it was, before it became cool to not watch Monday Night Football, just because it's programming, We don't need all the sporting jerseys, folks. It's not really supporting your team. It's just supporting some rich dude. And you look like a sheep. That's a hardcore role that we can see in society is avid sports fan. That's we can put that one on the list. We found one role that a lot of people jump right into because it's very comfortable and society supports it. You can be avid sports fan all day long and you fit in. I look at everything as a distraction because that's the goal. This is the long and short of what I learned as a kid in the CIA remote viewing program is that our power is our thought. That's everything. And anything that they can do by every design to simply distract humans from sitting around and using their consciousnesses together. That's the game. That's the faction. We are very strong and very adaptable, and it has more to do with our energetic physique than our physical presentation. And there are folks that are very aware of what we can do mentally. So therefore is the distraction. So they can get you from 9 to 5. They got you right there. They got you for that first 40 hours, no problemo. And they can usually get you on the cheap. And usually they can get almost everybody to work for just about as much money it takes for them to spend. They have this pretty well dialed in. If you think that you're going out and you're looking for wages, you're not. Look at it from the other perspective. They get almost every single person to generate just enough money that they need to spend almost all of it again and put it right back to the handler.
It's an ingenious
great little plan. That's the first 40 hours. Now after that 40 hours, they just need how to figure out to dangle the things in front of you that you're going to give them their money back on. But whatever we got to do, they don't want us thinking. How many times when you're talking to someone and you ask them a question, do you catch them in the middle of thought or typing? I find that amazing. I ask them a question now. They don't think, they type. And it's like, I was hoping you were a thinker. I remember back when you used to Google stuff and it would give you good info. You know? Like I don't know how far away it is between, like, I don't know, but eventually I feel like someday I'm going to Google, like, hey Google, what's 2 + 2? And it's going to be like, could be 5, could be 6. Like, how much money you got? Do you really want to know? You know, there's a way to find out what 2 + 2 is, but if you're going to try Googling that stuff, we're not going to just tell you the answer. And there's going to be a whole bunch of fluff in here that you can try to divine out if it's true or not what the answer is, but good luck. And the internet didn't used to be like that, but people nowadays don't know. Reality is a lot more complex than we've been taught. Another misconception, there's a term, Occam's razor, that gets thrown around quite regularly, and is a good debate as to whether it's being used correctly or not. But there's an idea behind it that, you know, people state that, oh, well, you know, if you're trying to figure something out, well, Occam's razor says that, you know, just the simplest thing is usually true. And that is, in a way, how Occam's razor is applied. But it doesn't mean it's right. That's what people do. But in reality, that's not true in the slightest. People want that to be true. Just because you can come up with a simple answer. Life almost never turns out to be that simple. That's just a human creature comfort zone. And the idea of Occam's razor was actually to take all of the things that could be considered and then to slice by slice, remove all things that cannot be possible. And then whatever remains would have to be plausible. That's what Occam's razor is really getting at, the slicing and the razoring away. But it is literally through the tedious consideration of every possibility. Not through simplicity's sake, it's through crazy complexity of study and testing every possibility to then get to what would be what's left. But most people are not going to get in any semblance of consideration of all that's possible nowadays because they're given information in the programming that tells them what's possible, that presents what's possible, and they believe it. It's frustrating. I've just seen too much of the world. I've met too many people. I've had too many great conversations. I've been in too many cool buildings, and the world is way more complex than any factions are telling we the people. Yes, I think all too often people are slicing off things from consideration when they are absolutely still very considerable. How many people are not open to the idea that there's been life coming and going on this planet is forever? A lot of people can't handle that conversation, aren't open to the conversation, and will be belligerent if you try to communicate anything of the such to them. Lots of times I'm just looking for reciprocity from people. I consider myself relatively tolerant until people are intolerant. I'm a big fan of people having opinions, passionate opinions, and sharing them. But you can't get, I guess, just angry when other people are as passionate about their opinions. I mean, you can't presume who's the bigger experience. It doesn't work like that. It's just experience. People like to think if you walk up to a homeless person on the street, like you're going to teach them something. How do you know the homeless person isn't about to teach you something? People get very proud of their experiences but it's like, well, other people have theirs as well. I totally get that. That's why I'm saying everybody needs to share their experiences more. I think we've been taught to disrespect the experiences of others with great ease nowadays if it's different than ours, under the banner of people screaming tolerance and being homogenous, be like us. It's the craziest thing that I'm seeing nowadays.
Yeah, it's really a screwing with your mind. It's a psychological warfare, right? Where they're doing one thing, but telling you that it's another thing.
That in and of itself is mentally traumatizing, and part of the program is to keep giving people mixed signals like that. Absolutely part of MK Ultra programming. This is like stuff that I would talk to with Penny. I'd say, they're not targeting us anymore. They're targeting everyone else. They're just using the programs that they learned how to be this manipulative on folks like me and Penny when we were kids. So they messed with us to learn how to do what worked. And now we're just basically coming out of the woodwork and going, guys, watch your back. They're shooting at you now.
Yeah, they turn the individual type of MK Ultra Project Pegasus programming into a collective programming, because they had to know that it worked on an individual basis to basically take it worldwide and put it on a collective type of trauma. Because we know that the trauma-based mind control is, there for a reason to mind fracture, people to get them into subset personalities, right? So they've taken that research, which I'm sure that they still do it. I'm not 100% sure. I guarantee they're still doing it on some level, on an individual basis. But they've really expanded their efforts and turned it into a collective MK Ultra traumatization, type of mind control.
Oh yeah. The documentation that I've been collecting just keeps accruing. When I keep thinking that I'm going to lose the scent and that might be gone, I find more info. So again, like I was stating earlier, with momentum and Newton's laws, I expect I'm going to keep finding more info, and the trail will continue, and the years will accrue that these programs have been continuing. They just keep changing names. I mean, that's how these systems work and how these programs function. They know how to lose the scent. Politicians change hands. Companies keep getting checks. The companies will keep doing what they're doing, and the politicians will rotate out, and the companies will keep doing what they need to do. That's what people don't realize. The politicians aren't running everything. The companies are. Companies maintain. And the companies have lobby groups. The companies are funding the elections. I mean, come on. That's how politics work.
Yeah.
I think there is something now that I'm witnessing my experience for the last year and what I'm seeing. I'm going to believe that there is something in the human exchange of having a face-to-face interaction and just simply communicating that is beneficial to both parties. I believe that a lot more so than ever. And I also feel like I'm seeing folks that are trying to prevent that. So I see intentions. So it gives me pause. I almost never would have thought that if I hadn't seen so much intention being applied to prevent it. It really makes me look at the circumstance directly. And that's my current assessment. and I promote people speaking to each other in person, face to face. I think it is healthy for them. We're using the tech instead of the tech using us. That's the way I see it. So I'm going to be taking advantage of the digital social structures, and getting more involved to spread my experience further and try to connect with other folks that they themselves might have had a peculiar past and are looking to engage others and spread their truth. I started a website. It's up and running technically, and I'll be able to be streaming from there live. And I'm going to be inviting other people onto that platform as well, because I want to provide a safe haven for people to actually express themselves and not have to worry about the gatekeepers of information banning them and squishing them and not being able to get their voice out. So this is what I'm doing, is just trying to be that change, and just, I don't know, like almost, I guess, break ground a little bit. And the way I look at it is like you break ground a little bit, and then you make it's easier for the next person, they'll follow up behind you. I did, trade work most of my life, and we would say things like, your finished work is only as good as your rough construction. But someone's got to get in there and break ground still. Someone's got to go in there, before you set a faucet in a house, somebody's got to go in and break ground and put a foundation in and just get in there. So that's the way I look at it with this truth stuff, is that I'm just trying to break ground in an environment where everybody's getting squished, and hopefully get them to get their voices out, because there's such a push to silence everybody right now. I'm going to be transitioning to the website fast and furiously, and using that as my platform in the not too distant future, and trying to draw other great content creators over there so that we can get some truth again.